Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another Kung Fu Talk, your favorite martial arts podcast. And before starting our show, before introducing today's guest, I want to ask you to please share, comment, like, subscribe. We are on YouTube and also Spotify. Make sure you follow us on Spotify as well. So today I have someone that has a vast knowledge into martial arts, and we're also going to talk about different fields as well. I have here Marlon Wilson. How are you doing today?
Excellent, brother. How are you? Great to see you.
Great to see you too. It's nice to see you again. Like normally meet each other doing the JKD's workshop. Enter the Tao of Jeet Kune Do with Sifu Singh, and now I have you here. We're gonna chat a little bit about martial arts, your life experience into martial arts, and career path. So related to martial arts, and I hope you enjoyed this show, and I hope you enjoyed being my guest.
Awesome. I'm excited. Yay.
So starting our show, so I want to see if you can please share your how your journey in martial arts began and what initially drew you into Jeet Kune Do and Kali, and how did you come to practice with the legendary Sifu scene?
Awesome. Okay. So there's a lot of moving parts to all that. So I actually started martial arts when I was 19 years old. I started in Shaolin Wushu, and I did that for about 7 or 8 years. And from there, me and my instructor at the time, we decided to part ways. He was going off on his own personal journey, and I was
Mhm.
going on mine. And I found out of doing that, like I had gotten my black sash in Shaolin, and then by the time it was done, I was like, that's it. I don't feel any more confident. I don't feel that sense of unshakable confidence like Sifu Singh talks about.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, I got to try something else. So I got into some Muay Thai for a couple of years at Mike Miles here in Calgary. Had a private instructor teach me for a while, and also learned from Sensei Ben doing some Aikido for. I did that for probably about 2 or 3 years for each of those. Also did a little bit of Tai Chi with an instructor. His name was Danny, I think Danny Lai or something like that here in Calgary. So learned from him for a while. And I still wasn't quite connecting to what I wanted to get to. So then from there, I'd always been intrigued by Guru Dan because he
Mhm.
teaches JKD. And then I started looking online. I was like, okay, is there any JKD in Calgary? So I found a school that was teaching JKD in Asanto, Lacoste, all that kind of stuff. So I was like, great. So I went and trained there for I think I was there for about 8 to 10 years. And then I got to the same place again. I ended up getting my brown belt there. I was an instructor. And I was still like, man, I'm still not feeling that sense of unshakable confidence like in combat. So then I got connected to Sifu Singh. His first seminar, I think I learned from him probably 6 or 7 years ago, something like that. And I was really intrigued because I was like, okay, this is starting to be more what I was looking for. And I got connected to him through my current instructor now in boxing, kickboxing, some Serrata, JKD, which is Sifu J. Cooper here in Calgary. So at the time I wasn't learning under him. He just invited me to come to Sifu Singh's seminar. I was like, great. And I saw him. I was like, wow, I think I'm getting a good sense about him. And this is, I think, the direction I want to go. So then every time he was here in Calgary, I made a point of like, okay, I got to go see this guy. Got to go see this guy. Like I have to, because he was showing me things that felt like there was holes in my training that I was missing. So, and then again, going back to what I was talking about with my instructor here in Calgary, I found the
Mhm.
same thing. When I got my brown belt, I still wasn't getting over that hump. And I was like, okay. So I parted ways with that instructor, and then I transitioned into my current instructor, Sifu J. And then because he's learning under Sifu Singh as one of his students, there was a lot of parallel between Singh and Sifu J. And I was like, okay, now I'm starting to build, some of that skill set and that unshakable confidence that I've been looking for. So I've been training with Sifu J now for about just a year and a half, and Sifu Singh was actually just here in Calgary a couple weeks ago, so I got to spend
Mhm.
3 days with him again, which was absolutely amazing. And yeah, now that's pretty much how it started and how things have evolved over time. And then from there, I also did some Silat, did some Wing Chun, um, and then, yeah, I do some Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. So now just really looking to break my way around it and starting to put the pieces of the puzzle together to what JKD actually is.
That's amazing. What I find what fascinates me is like how into Jeet Kune Do, especially with Sifu Singh, he's so welcome with regardless of the art. You know, I've seen other people talking about Jeet Kune Do with all my respect to other instructors. When they talk about Jeet Kune Do, it seems very close community where everybody's trying to prove a point. But with Sifu Singh, he's so welcome, and he doesn't need to prove anything because the way that he teaches, the way that he welcomes people, it's very warm, like in a sense where everybody's welcome, everybody feel that they can contribute teaching, not exactly teaching, but like learning in his workshops, but at the same time performing, developing their martial arts and evolving in a new next level, if you know what I'm saying. And it, like we know with your background in jiu-jitsu and other arts, kickboxing and kali, I'm sure that you felt very confident like when you step into practice with him.
Absolutely, completely confident, and I felt encouraged knowing that I can start to progress my skills. That was the biggest thing. I'm like, okay, I've learned a good framework of seeing things like the outer perimeter of a puzzle. Now I'm like, okay, now I got to start working on putting those pieces of the puzzle together and start putting the puzzle together. Whereas before, I just kind of had some of the corner edges, had a couple parts, but now it's like, okay, Singh is great about putting the pieces of the puzzle together. He's like, okay, what you did before, he's like, don't discount it. It is all worthy of where you are today. Sifu J says the same thing to me. He's like, none of it was bad. It's just now you got to take all those things and now you got to put the puzzle together. So that's what I appreciate going to Sifu Singh is I don't feel judged. I feel accepted. I feel safe. I feel encouraged and hungry for more.
Exactly. Hungry for more, I would say it's the best explanation after you finish every session with him. I know like every time we meet at his workshops, we finish like just destroy after 5, 8 hours practicing, but you're still ready for the next day. It's not something that you're like exhausted. Oh my God, I can't wait to finish. Like when you finish, it's like, that's it. Like,
I know, and I feel the same way. I'm like, we're done. I'm like, I feel like I'm excited because I got through it, and the other part of me is a little bit sad. Like every single time, I'm like, oh, it's over. I'm like, I could spend weeks with him and
yeah.
be fine. Like literally, I could spend probably months and be just like, oh, keep going, and still my cup isn't full. Like it's incredible.
It's incredible because he has so much knowledge, not only into the physical part, where I say like just combat, but the philosophy in bringing what actually Bruce Lee, the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, the book, and all his thoughts through his artwork, through his works, into his class is seminars, workshops. Is just like a very unique experience. That's why like I was very I'm grateful, to be part of this family, of the family of the GKDAA, and being part of this. I remember that many years ago I was following him on Instagram, and I wanted to practice him. When the opportunity came, I was like, wow. I remember my first JKD, the Texas retreat. It was like,
Yeah.
wow. I got home like super excited. I was like, oh my God, I can't wait for next year. And then the next year came, and so it's always a good opportunity.
Yeah, agreed. Totally.
So the Jeet Kune Do emphasize the concept of using a way as a way. How do you interpret the philosophy in your training and daily life?
So using no way as the way. So one of the things I've learned over the years, so going back to all the martial arts that I've learned, so I learned a lot of patterns and structure. So it was really good to learn that as a base. And the other part of it is what I've learned, and it's evolved over in my journey as a martial artist, is looking to break away from the structure, not having to hold on to it's like it has to be this way. Like I'm trying to remember, there's a phrase that Sifu J says to me, and he says like always, sometimes, never. Like as in you're never going to do everything exactly like the textbook. Everything's, you have to take the concept of it, and then from there you have to break away from it. And it's the same like I look at it as martial arts, like us as martial artists for the most part, because we're martial artists, there's that energetic feel where people just don't want to mess with us because they can feel that it's like, okay, this, we could try against him, but it might not go well. So I like that because it helps me avoid conflicts physically and even in my relationships as far as conversation. It's rather than looking at it as like I have to do things this way, to break away from it. It's just like there's some gray in there. It's just like maybe I can try this, maybe I can try that. Like it's learning to play and be like water. Like it sounds cheesy, like Cedro Bruce Lee talks about, but it's like you're looking to be malleable. And it's just like just because something was this way in a past situation doesn't mean that I have to use that experience and do it exactly the same, because I'm a different person. The person I'm with is a different person. Even if that person from 2 or 3 years ago, we were in a conflict, 2 years later, they're still a different person. So I still have to take what I've learned and to break away from the structure, not have it as a base. It's great. And to learn to evolve from that structure into something else that's greater.
I would say evolve is a perfect word because we both came from a traditional martial arts. You did Shaolin. I also do Southern Fist, Hakka Fist, which I love it. I appreciate the system. But
Mhm.
it's beautiful how into Jeet Kune Do you bring the art and the definition of adaptability, where it comes to each movement you have to adapt which every single moment, depending how you're going to use. It's something that it caught my attention. That's why, like, when we see, of course, like, I came into martial arts when I was a kid, when I was 13 years old, because of Bruce Lee, because of video games. But I didn't know anything about Jeet Kune Do back in the days. But now, I started martial arts into traditional systems, and then going with the evolution of, I would say, Jeet Kune Do, which be the evolution of the arts. Not discrediting traditional martial arts again. I love, I do still practice, but the concept of using no way as a way, as you bringing different tools for different moments, as adapting to different circumstances, I think that would be a perfect sensation of what martial art it is. Because again, it was never about the style, and that's something that it's beautiful that Sifu see every single seminar. He always talks about that, and even on his videos as well.
Oh, totally. And I love that it's not about style. It's like it's creating your own style. Like it's amazing. And I'm amazed how that has been able to transition in other areas of my life, into my business and my personal relationships. Like I see things so much differently from martial arts. And I still remember thinking about what you were talking about the reasons you got into martial arts.
Mhm,
So for me, I didn't have that sense of confidence in myself. I didn't believe
mhm.
in myself. I grew up in a very destructive home environment, and I wanted to feel that sense of safety. And for me, it was like, okay, I have to learn to control myself. And for a lot of it, like you watching movies, it was just like, oh, okay, I gotta learn how to, kick ass. And then really, as I started to do it, I'm like, well, I'm not really getting into fights. So then I started to learn, I'm like, this is about learning to control my emotions, control myself, to control my interactions and how I conduct myself with others, and to be able to how to build a life. So when you talked about adaptability, that's what life's about. It's always about adapting. The more we're able to adapt to the changes, the higher chance of success we're able to achieve.
What I think it's nice also to connect not only modern martial arts, but also with the traditional martial arts. The traditional kung fu, we have the term called sanfa, which is the fist coming from the heart, which means with the intention, right? And everything that we do comes with the intention of doing something. And normally people, when they get into martial arts, of course, like, everybody normally sign up for a school, there's, regardless of the style, because they want to learn how to protect themselves. So we always look for the big picture of movements of learning how to fight. But when you actually find great instructors like your instructor and Sifu Singh, you see that the path is way deeper, is way wider. So we learn so much more, because it's not just, maybe gonna be lucky and you're never gonna have to confront someone, with your fist to protect yourself. But how do you actually going to apply that into your personal life? That's the key point. Like, as you said, into the relationship, into a marriage, into your work, study, how you're gonna have the discipline and that you learn in class with a great instructor, and then you're gonna apply that into your personal goals. I think that's something way bigger that people should realize. I mean, we normally realize after we are in a high standard, after we pass all the you know movements, we are a little bit more confident into sparring, going to the things. But not everybody sees martial arts as that way. I remember my mom; she was very scared because she was like, "Oh, I don't want you to become like like those fighters like in the TV. You're gonna become violent." And it's not what martial arts bring. Martial arts brings actually peace.
100%. You know what's funny is my mom had the same. I had the same experience with my mom, where she was really concerned because she knew the way my dad was, and she was just like, "I don't want you to be just like him." And I'm like, martial arts, like Sifu Singh talks about, is so much bigger than about kicking ass. Like that is like a fraction of what it actually is. Like when I think back to when he was here a couple weeks ago, he went around the room and asked each of us, "Okay, what was your best experience of this seminar?" Everybody came around the room and he asked everybody what their opinion was. Nobody talked about anything physically martial arts related. Everything was so much bigger. And even somebody had asked me the other day, it was just like, what was your best experience, about the seminar? And I was like, being able to connect with a friend that I haven't been able to connect with in a long time. That was the best part. Like that, hands down, meant more to me than all the physicality and all those things I learned. They were amazing, but it was the deeper aspects. And that's the part that I truly hope and wish to see more, that people see that it's like martial arts is more than your fists, so much deeper.
I see, like something that I really like is UFC. I like watching fights, but unfortunately, I think that our society, the community in general, people are always trying to prove a point. Which style is better, which fighter is better, who can beat whatever. You go on YouTube, Wing Chun against MMA, Tai Chi versus Karate or whatever. There's always someone trying to prove a point, which I mean that's a business. We see how it is on UFC, but unfortunately, that I would say the bad energy. A lot of people that unfortunately doesn't have the knowledge that we do have of practicing and actually and understanding the system and knowing that martial arts is not just about fist, as you said. It's more about knowing yourself and transforming yourself, evolving yourself to a new level.
Hmm.
And that's exactly what Sifu Scene brings to every single session and to every single workshop. And it's just an amazing experience.
Oh, agreed, totally.
So Jeet Kune Do incorporates techniques from some styles. Are there any particular style or technique you emphasize in your practicing? Like something that you mostly like or mostly use?
Anything that I mostly like. So I love. I've had people ask me that. It's just like, what's your favorite martial art out of all of you've done? And you know what? I really love and appreciate all of them. I love different aspects of each of them because each art has helped me create me, right, in different ways, and help me to use those things in different ways. I mean, I really appreciate Kali as far as using the sticks.
Mhm.
Connecting my body. I like Wing Chun for the structure, for the looking to have sensitivity. I love JKD overall for looking to connect the dots and put it all together. I love boxing for body mechanics. Like, just it's so tough for me to isolate one thing. I if I would say anything, I would say is I like how each of them fits together and how I'm learning to fit each together and to be able to adapt to use various techniques from each style in a situation. If I pick out that, it would be that. And that's going to be a forever journey for me. Even when I've long passed on, I will never be able to get all of it, which is what is super exciting about martial arts is there's so much to learn. So when you're talking about it's just like, well, people compete between styles. It's like, well, there's no style. Like, just anybody. Like, I always look at it as, there's always going to be somebody bigger, stronger, faster, more skilled than you, right? Depending on whatever style, it's just like whatever you decide to lean into, you'll grow from there. So for me, it's like, no, there really isn't one. I love all of it because it's helped me grow so much in so many ways. So yeah.
When it comes about adaptability, as we're talking about, and incorporating the techniques into Jeet Kune Do, what I like is the same thing. Like this is a really hard question. I love how you answer because you go above and beyond to the scope of choosing a specifically technique. Because if you think yourself, what is the technique is about? It has its limitation, but when you have the style itself, combine it so you have a system where you can count on every single technique that you have in there. And Jeet Kune Do I find fascinating because of this proportion where you can get one movement of here and one movement there, and then you can adapt them to your own style, as you said. Like, you're not going to be imitating Bruce Lee. You see a lot of people just imitating Bruce Lee, thinking that it's Jeet Kune Do. I do respect that, but it's kind of funny in the sense that you see choreography and you see actually application itself. In the street, there's no way of me choosing. Okay, wait a minute, you're gonna rob me. Let me see which style I'm gonna use. It's just whatever it comes. And then if you don't practice every single muscle of your body, like as Bruce Lee used to say, like, you are doomed, because you might need that movement. Somebody's going to stab you, and then you have to block with some Kali angle, or coming with a bat, or anything with the stick. So it's nice. I remember when I first started into Jeet Kune Do, I was like looking to think of, like, like I want to be like Bruce Lee, sort of thing. But when my first instructor was going to Kali, I was like, bro, like, I don't like this thing, but you have to go over. It's part of the material. You have to be respectful. And after a while, I was like, oh, this thing is actually fun. I love the angles. I love, how to work it, and like, but how are you gonna use, without the stick? Like, well, I'm not gonna have a stick or a knife bomb like other time. And then he was going over, no, without a stick you do this, without the, it's the same movement. You just have to adapt, and then you see beyond the movement. It's nice. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful art.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah, it's very exciting for the future, because then you have, like, your limitations are a lot less. And I can't remember, Bruce Lee talks about there is no limit or something like that. And there's that quote that's coming to my mind. There's another one that he said something about, we need to be ourselves, not be like him. No, we can't be like him, because he's uniquely him. You're uniquely you. I'm uniquely me. So I have to be able to adapt and use it based on my body structure and the way it moves. Now, there's some things that I can take from what Cedar Bruce Lee did and go like, okay, I like the way he did that. I'm going to apply that. But I'm never going to be able to do it exactly like him. No one can, because we're not him. He's his own specific cellular DNA is him, right? So when you look at it that way, it's just like, okay, great. And like, even if you look at like stars like Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, mimicked a lot of what Michael Jordan did. And even still, Kobe Bryant was still, amazing at himself. He still had his own unique flair that wasn't exactly like Jordan, because they're a different person.
That's amazing. Filipino martial arts like Kali focus heavily on weapon training. What unique challenge and benefits do you find in teaching and practicing Kali?
So Kali, I find, it's interesting that when they teach you Kali, they obviously start with teaching you weapons, then you learn empty hand. And one of the things that I understood at the time was just like, okay, when you learn how to use the weapons, hands ends up becoming easier. And I thought that when I was teaching it and then getting people to use their hands, but I didn't find that as an instructor teaching people. I found that people were really confused with that. And I mean, I'm still marinating on this and still processing it. One of the things I've learned from my instructor here, Sifu J, is learning good body mechanics in boxing. Learning to connect to the stick in Kali, I found really helped me blend the two to go, oh, like, now I can start to see how they connect together, how a jab is the same as a number one strike, how a number two can be the same as a cross. It's just like, oh, okay, I can start to see it. But I find when people haven't learned really good body mechanics through boxing, learning how to punch, because most people, when they come in and they've never done any martial arts before, if they haven't done any martial arts and they go to use a stick, their body's so uncoordinated, especially as adults. Whereas if you learn how to punch, then use how to stick, you can tie the two together. And I'm not saying that it needs to be that way. And I'm also saying that there's something to consider in there, just in my own research and my own experimentation through learning myself and through teaching others, because I can see when people are starting to punch properly and then they go to use the stick, it's like, oh, okay, then they're starting to connect the dots. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, Kali is a very effective system. It's interesting how when I start learning Kali, you start, as you said, you start from weapon to empty hands. Traditional martial arts, you start from empty hands to weapons. It's
Yeah.
funny, and it is beautiful to see the similarity in a sense, where you're still gonna learn, both, but in a sense, the
Yeah.
difference between the arts, and they still connect.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Kali emphasized adaptability and fluidity. Can you share an example of these principles have helped you or your students in real life situations?
Adaptability. Well, honestly, just what we experienced 4 years ago with the transition of the way the world has shifted, and the way we had to learn to adapt to the circumstances of what was happening globally. Where that's Cali taught me a lot of that, and it's not just Cali. I mean, all martial
Mhm.
arts do. So I don't want to isolate it to just one because it's not true. It's all of them. Now, having said that, talking about Cali, it did because you learn that, okay, what I did before, I'm not able to do it like I'd like to exactly right now. I'm not saying that I'm not going to be able to bring that back. It just means that based on the circumstances of the situation, I have to learn to operate this way. Maybe I can bring that back into the situation depending on what shifts there are. Right. And it can work in, I always like talking about relationships when it comes to martial arts because
Mhm.
it's so dear to my heart because relationships is we're going to remember those relationships in our life more than we will ever learn about anything we ever did physically, anything physically we attain. So it's how do we talk to someone, how do we treat them, did we really listen to what they said, and not just the words, but were we able to read between the lines of what their words were, we paying attention to their body language, were we able to adapt to what they said. So if they it's hard to come up with a specific situation, but if someone says one thing, are we able to, rather than react to the situation, going to our old patterns and reactive tendencies, are we able to respond in a different way to create a greater, I'm going to say that, a greater relationship between the two of us, whatever that looks like. And it doesn't even have to be an intimate relationship. It could be a friendship. It could be a business relationship. It can be even just going to meet somebody at the coffee shop, just, the barista, right? It's like, okay, how do we adapt to what they say and based on what's happening? It may not be exactly the way we'd like it to be, but how can we make it different and still serve both of us?
Exploring a little bit more about relationship. I love what you're saying because it is exactly in the last workshop was this year that Dao of Jeet Kune Do with Sifu Singh. I remember when he mentioned the relationship between now going into the aspect of self defense, the relationship between you and your opponent. You have to actually work on that in order to get new I get a good strategy in order to defeat him. And when I remember that when he mentioned this, I was like, wow, this is something that I would never ever think about. Having a relationship with your opponent into a fight is not just simply clash against his energy, but work through this energy in order to defeat him, so we can use the principle of yin yang. I was like, whoa, like that was like ways, like it
Oh,
was like it was something imaginable. And then going to back, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say I agree with you completely. I never would have thought about that too. That was a mind blowing moment for me. I'm like, have a relationship with someone that I'm in combat with, like really listening to them and really flowing it. That was one thing Sifu Singh said to me when I was in Texas with you. Is when I
Mhm.
was working with one of the other guys there, Roberto. I don't know if you got the chance, but he was like, Marlon. He's like, don't fight with him. Like flow with him. Learn to work with him. Have that relationship like you and I are talking about right now. And that was such a foreign thought to me, and like you, I never would have thought of that. But you're right. When we do learn to flow with them, like a dance, right? When I do that, that's when we can
Mhm.
eventually see the holes. Then that's when we can start filling those holes, like he talks about.
It goes back to the principle of tradition. For example, you get into a Wing Chun, the Chi Sao, that's all about learning how to fluid with your partner or against your opponent if you're sparring with him. It's amazing. It's amazing how these principles, it's so general. We first learn into movements and then we apply into our personal lives. It's just amazing.
Mhm.
How has your martial arts background influenced you approach as a certified holistic nutritional consultant?
So for me, martial arts, it's influenced in the sense that, like us as martial artists, we're always physically active. We're dealing with injuries, as Sifu Singh talks
Mhm.
about. So we have some kind of pain, and when we have that kind of pain, it's limiting our ability to feel a higher level of freedom. So now, if it is it's not just about the physical training. Like through going through my holistic training through nutrition, I've learned that what I put into my body will influence my experience of my relationships with others. So not only personal relationships, but relationship in combat. My energetic ability. So if I'm running low on my vibration, right? What I'm eating, what I'm drinking, right? Even through a lot of it, we talked about stress management and sleep. If I'm not learning to manage my body's ability to recover, and sometimes I find, people in my life that don't understand that. Like I'll make decisions based on my ability to relate to others and to be able to perform at a high level as a martial artist. So when I'm working with clients, it's like, okay, this isn't just me as a martial artist. Everybody can be a martial artist. In fact, I consider everyone to be a martial artist, whether you're going to the school or not, because like we've talked about, martial arts is so much bigger than fists. So it's like, okay, if you need to perform at a higher level, that doesn't mean punching a bag. That can be a perform at a high level as a business executive. That can be performing at a high level as a partner in a marriage. That can be performing at a high level as a mother, as a father. How do we be able to have the energy to be able to adapt to the situations? And a lot of it comes from what we're taking into our body, right? How are we able to mitigate the toxins? We live in a very toxic environment globally, right? So it's impossible to be able to filter out all of them. At the same time, we want to be able to take control of our health to be able to manage things as best as we can based on the resources we have.
One question to you. Why do you think some or maybe many of martial arts instructor they don't take advantage of this and they don't go deep into this part of nutrition? For example, I've been martial artist for so many years and it got into a point of my life like a few months ago. I was like, you know what, I gotta take care of myself. I used to eat like love like Coke was my Coca-Cola was my favorite thing. I could not live without it. And then I got with the trainer with the bodybuilder. I was like, you know what, I wanna take care of myself. I wanna practice. I wanna lift some weight. I wanna have a better shape. Where do I have to start? And the first thing was like, just quit Coke. I was like, oh shoot! But I actually did, and then I started just drinking water. I used to hate water. I used to hate water
Yeah.
so bad. So my question is like, why do you think Do you think maybe because people are lazy, or sometimes it's something more like, they just don't want to take the effort of just changing their life is more like lack of discipline. What do you think about that? Because this is actually very important. As you said, like you have to take care of yourself. If you don't do it, like you're gonna end it up having a shorter life instead of having, a good old age,
So my answer to that question really simple, and I'll expand on it, is that people haven't experienced enough pain. So until they feel enough pain, they won't change. They have no reason to. They'll keep staying in their comfort zone, eating all the garbage food until they're feeling enough pain where they are going to go, I have no choice. I have to make a change. So I was very similar to you. I wasn't drinking Coke. Having said that, I was eating fast food like 3 times a day. I was, consuming so much sugar. So there was a guy, he had me on this machine called biofeedback machine, which was reading my body rhythms and seeing what was going on. And he said that I had the highest level for sugar reactivity than anyone he's ever seen. And he's seen thousands of clients.
Wow.
So it contributed to a lot of headaches for me, to the point where I had initial stages, and I haven't shared this with anybody else publicly, but I'm happy to share it with you, where there was the initial stages of the small tumor starting to grow. And if I didn't start to resolve it, that would have gotten worse. So for me, I was like, boom, that's a wake up call. I have to start doing something for my life. If I don't, my life, not only length, but it's also the quality of our life while we're here. It has to be much bigger. That people are like, oh, I'm going to live till 80. I'm like, yeah, you can live till 80. Maybe you live till 100. Having said that, if you're living till 80 or 100 and you're in a home, you're dealing with all these conditions like Alzheimer's, dementia, all those conditions are on the rise right now. And I'm not saying all of it's food. There's so many other things, contributing factors that come with that. Having said that, it's just like, what is the quality of life that you want to have? How do you want to operate with others? How do you want to not only physically train, how do you want to you be able to relate to your partner? How do you want to be able to serve the community. If you're dealing with headaches, and I had some really bad ones, some gnarly ones, there's a point where, like, if there was a gun there, I probably would have considered using it because I was in that much pain. And then I was like, that was a wake up. It's like, yeah, I got to start changing. I have to start making changes. And there's people in my life that still don't understand that. But it's like, Marlon, why don't you drink? Why don't you eat this? Why don't you do that? And I'm like, because I see the bigger picture of things. I'm looking 70 years down the road, and I'm like in my rocking chair, I'm like, how do I want to see myself? How do I want to see myself operate? And until people are ready to get to that point in their life where they'll be able to look at themselves in the mirror and go, I need to make changes because I want to create a greater future, not only for myself, but everyone around me. It's bigger than just me. It's about serving everyone, because the more I'm looking to grow within myself and take care of me, deal with my nutrition, then nothing will change. It's the same with other martial arts instructors. And you know what? That's why, whatever your religious creed is, that's why in the Bible it talks about everyone needs to have free will. That's someone's free will choice whether they decide to do that. So until that martial arts instructor or student or whoever is feeling enough pain, or they see the need where they need to make changes, they won't change. They'll keep doing what they're doing, and they're like, no, 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 I'm fine, I don't need to do anything. And that's okay. Maybe they don't. And that's where I go, I'm like, you're not feeling enough pain yet. Just wait. And one way or the other, you pay. It's just like, how do you want to pay? Do you want to pay with your health by taking medications? Do you want to pay with lack of sleep? Do you want to pay by emptying your bank account down the road? Do you want to pay by, being at home? Do you want to pay by have a separation in your relationship from your partner, your child, whoever? Choice is yours.
Exactly. Wow, that's a very deep understanding. And the best way to learn, I would say, it's learning with some other people's mistakes because it hurts less. Like as you said, like um, I take in consideration like I've been into martial arts for so many years, and after learning about Ip Man's great martial artist, great grandmaster, but unfortunately, he could maybe possibly he would leave more years. Unfortunately, if he was not that much addicted to smoking and to cigarettes. And I also have close friends, family that never got into any physical exercise. For example, I have my fiance's grandma, beautiful, lovely person, but unfortunately never got into taking care of herself. And unfortunately nowadays she's on the 80s, live has very difficulty walking, has her limitations. Maybe if she would be taking care of a couple of things before, that would bring a little bit more comfortable life on this
And I've
age.
And I've seen the same thing in a lot of like, I look at my grandmother, I look at my uncle, and all the pain they went through towards the end of their life. And a lot of it was based on what I saw as a lot of their lifestyle choices. I would watch them and I was like, wow. And I'm like, okay, that's not the way I want to live. I remember when I was like 10 years old, I saw this guy in a news station. He was 100 years old, flexed his bicep, was playing baseball. And I was like, that's the guy I want to be. Right. That sense of vitality and strength and unshakable confidence in himself, that to me is health. When I looked at a lot of the older people that are around me, and even now I just go, wow. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, I don't want that. I'm like, that's a lifeless life, and it's very sad. And it feels like you're an animal that's locked in a cage. And I'm like, that's not living
Mhm.
free. That's not being fully alive in my mind. And I'm not saying that we can guarantee what the outlook is looking. There's no guarantees. It is exercising our ability to control the situation based on our choices and the resources we have to create the best possible scenario that we can. Now, some people have tried and failed. At the same time, I'd rather lean in and do the very best I can. And at the end of my life, going, no, I gave it my all. I leaned in. I didn't hold back.
Mhm. Amazing. That's nice. What roles does nutrition play in optimizing martial arts performing and recovery? And what advice do you give to martial artists looking to improve in these areas?
So a lot of elements to unpack in there. What I'll start with is water's the first thing. So I always advise people to have half your body weight in ounces. Make sure you're getting enough electrolytes with that. Which so I always advise throwing in some Himalayan sea salt, throwing some coconut water that's not concentrated, so loaded with sugar, because that mineral uptake is going to be able to balance our mood. So one of the things that contributing factors to headaches is lack of minerals. So water is a big one. The other thing is to stay away from processed, unrefined chemical foods. Eliminate that or limit it as much as possible. So eat around the perimeter of the aisles. If you have more than 5 ingredients on a label, it's made in a box, chances are it is somehow ultra processed, and that is going to wreak havoc on the gut. So keep it simple there. Stay away from or stay away or limit grains, dairy. Those are the big things, because if you're looking to optimize your ability to perform as a martial artist at a base level, those are the things you have to look for. And eat real food, real whole foods as often as possible. The other thing is you can't eat enough whole, real foods. Like, find somebody who can have like 10 avocados. You're not going to be able to do that, right? Because you're going to get satiated. When you're having real food, then the calories don't necessarily matter. So there's this talk about, it's like, oh, limit your calories. And I'm like, I'm going to have to say a counter argument to that, because if you're having whole real foods, then you won't overeat. It's, I, challenge anybody to do that. Okay, eat real whole foods all day, and then let's see if you overeat. Like, it's really hard to do. Like, but if you're having processed foods, things that have all these fillers and anything that's processed, it's really easy. I've done it lots. I spent a lot of my life. That's one of the things that changes, where I had a coach and he was like, Marlon, you have to start looking at your health, and you have to start looking at these things, because if you don't, you'll be a warning for everybody else. So when I look at those other people that I had mentioned, they're going to be a warning. So when I look at optimizing performance as a martial artist, being able to be more mindful and aware of the food I'm consuming is incumbent upon me as a martial artist, and so much more. So yeah, those are the big things. I also would advise supplements depending on what someone's going through, because the other thing is, because we live in such a toxic, loaded environment, the nutrient uptake on foods, it's really hard to get enough nutrients from the foods. These broccoli is 50% less in nutrient content than it was several years ago. There's so many other fruits and vegetables that are along the same lines, and 50% less than what it was. That's huge. So it's pretty hard to get enough nutrients from the food on its own. So the big simple ones are good whole foods multivitamin, omega-3 fish oils, because that's connected to our brain, our thought process. Probiotics is a big thing these days because of such a toxic environment. The food, as much as we're eating really good, it's pretty tough to be able to eat really good 100% of the time, right? So there's always social occasions and all these things coming up. So you want to be able to uptake the gut flora to make sure that it's functioning as best as possible. Vitamin D, because if you're inside, like all of us on the time, on screens at a computer, we're not getting enough sunshine. That affects our bone density. It affects our sense of vitality, our energy, our moods, all of it. Yeah, those are the big ones. Magnesium too is a big one, because we are dealing with so much stress these days. Like, everybody's depleted in magnesium. There's no one that is overdosing on magnesium unless you're like scooping it like out of a bucket. It's pretty hard. Like, magnesium is so low for so much, because we're all dealing with so much stress in the economy, financially, and our relationships, the way the world is shifting. That those are the big ones for me. Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for this
Yeah, you're
for this
welcome.
lecture.
Totally.
Going,
Anytime. Happy to share.
thank you so much. Going to the next question. As a medical exercise specialist, how do you incorporate martial arts into rehabilitation or functional fitness program for your clients?
So what I say a lot of people, because most of the people that I train, in fact, yeah, let's say 90% of them aren't martial artists. Most people that are coming to me are dealing with some kind of pain in their shoulder or their hip or their back, or trying to lose weight, and they're not looking to get into a martial arts competition, not looking to fight. And having said that, it's still good for people to know how to use their body properly, because once they know how to move their body mechanically, if they were able to get into a situation where they had to protect themselves, they will be able to maximize their body's output just based on learning how to move their body properly, and to be able to remove the tension. And by getting the muscles to work and the right movement patterns, removing the blocks, so they're going to be able to maximize their output. So if somebody's trying to attack them, even just a simple push, right? So if let's say they haven't learned how to use their pecs properly. So a primary mover in a push is your pecs. Your serratus anterior, your rhomboids are designed to lift your chest and rib cage up to allow you to access the pecs. But if you're into this kyphotic position, this rounded upper back, you got all this stress here in your shoulders, you're not going to have the strength because you're using all the smaller muscles to push someone off you rather than the primary movers, which is going to be your pecs and lats, to be able to maximize the output. So when people are like, well, yeah, but the chances of that were really low, I'm like, they could be, but you never know. What happens if you're, happen to be somewhere it's an unfamiliar environment? You go outside the world that you've been living in. So you go to a foreign country or something like that. And not only that, let's say you happen to fall to the floor by accident, right? And let's say you have to move out of the way of someone trying to run you over, whether that's somebody on a bike or a car. You got to be able to push yourself off the floor to move out of the way. So combining in there, it's just like, okay, this is about how do you be able to protect yourself and maximize your ability to get out of potentially risky situations to create more pain, whether that's physical body harm or the ultimate worrisome thing, which is losing your life. So that's how.
Wow, that's impressive. Um, what role does mindfulness play in your martial arts and holistic health practice? And how do you teach in your students
So,
mindfulness?
so mindfulness is all about being. I look at it as now one of the things I really appreciate Sifu Singh has really brought to the forefront for me that I've also heard from other authors and other coaches, and he's just really honed it in even more, is that ability to be present in the moment. So not going based off of our past programs, our patterns, reactive tendencies, and not being afraid of what could happen in the future, not looking beyond, but just to see things as they actually are and then be in the present moment. A lot of that connected to that is breath. So one of the things that he's gotten me to do over this past year is to do standing meditations. So I've been doing 5 minutes, 5 times a day, standing meditations religiously for the past year and a half. And a lot of that is to be present. And that's not been an easy thing to do. Easy in the sense that to being able to be there without the monkey mind racing, which it always does. It's impossible to not have it ever happen. It's about, okay, when my monkey brain goes away, then it's like, okay, how do I pull back to my center to get back into that present moment? I got knocked off, pull back. And one of the things that Sifu J has talked to me, he's like, it's not about getting thrown off center. It's just like, how quickly can you pull back to being pulled off from center after being pulled off? And a lot of it I teach my clients. This is one thing that I do in my medical exercise practice is I work with them. I'm like, okay, we have to start connecting to your breath. You have to start learning to breathe in through your nose, breathe out through your mouth. We're going to start simply with that. Then we're going to start pairing it into diaphragmatic breathing, where you're doing long breaths in through your belly, in through your rib cage, in through your chest, and then doing the reverse, going the opposite direction, learning to ground to the earth. And one of the things that I've been doing over the last 3 days is doing standing meditations for 15 minutes. And it's amazing to me, even the 3 days that I've done that, how much more I'm sinking into the earth, how much more I'm connected and grounded, and how much more centered I am, how much more present I am in the conversations I'm having with others, how much more present I am in the actions I take in the day. And it's not saying it's an exact science and it's perfect. We all get knocked off. It's more just like, okay, how do I get back to that feeling? Because I like feeling that way. And I talk about that very much with my clients. It's like, okay, this is something we have to do because um, it's going to build. It's going to build more freedom because the more we're able to be present within that experience, the more free we are to live and the more alive we feel.
Yeah, the mindfulness play a very important role into martial arts, especially with your field of in the medical field as well, like rehabilitation and stuff. What is fascinating, it's how Sifu Singh always mentioned finding your center and how you are able to meditate. Because meditation, since we, since the early age when we have, for example, arts like Tai Chi with the Qigong, the exercise, brings a lot of benefits, and it's beautiful that even the Harvard University came with many studies, medical studies, trying to prove the benefits that practicing the qigong and the breathing exercises can benefit people from many different illnesses, with helping with the rehabilitate from any different injuries and illnesses as well. I remember when I was practicing after so many years martial arts, something that I was like, I was still struggling back in the days about how to breathe. And then when Sifu Singh was talking about how breathe loud so you can actually listen to yourself and you can remember, that thing made a huge adjustment into my trainings, because practicing traditional forms, you get tired doing the movements, you have to memorize, you have to do low stances, you have to do all those movements. And I was like, why am I getting so tired? And then those couple of things, just a simple advice makes the whole change. How do you, now you're breathing with your, breathing loud, and then knowing how to actually breathe helps. It seems something so simple, but it helps a lot, especially for practitioners.
Oh, huge. Well, and even just, I think it was Sifu Singh had mentioned this, is that standing meditation and breath work, it's not just about relaxing, it's actually about giving ourselves back more energy. So one of the things that I've noticed, because I tend to work with clients one-on-one, a lot of times clients can be really energy draining. By the end of the session, I'm exhausted, and people are like, wow, it's just like, man, that's such an easy job. It's like, no, like, wow, like you just get to work out with everybody. And I'm like, okay, I was like, you guys are missing the point. When I'm working with somebody, there's so much energy that I'm giving towards them. By doing those standing meditations, that gives me energy back. One, for myself, because but sometimes I'm like, holy, I'm like, I have to be able to get something back. And a lot of times food doesn't do it. Like, no matter how clean the food is, no matter what supplements I'm taking, I'm like, it doesn't matter. And even Sifu said that too. When we went to that seminar with him in Orange County, he's like, oh, it doesn't matter. But now doing the standing meditation, I'm like, okay, I can see it, because now, like, not even see it, I can feel it. Where I'm like, okay, now I understand why I need to do this, why we all need to, and how it helps. Because now, again, back to mindfulness, when I have that energy back, now I'm more in the present moment. But when I'm lacking energy and I'm like, I feel like my foot's on the gas and on the brake at the same time, I'm like, oh, and then I'm like, I have no ability to be present. All I can think of is, like, I just want to sleep or sit down, lay down. I don't want to do anything.
Yeah, it's amazing how those meditations or those qigongs is like a recharging. I feel that we are like a cell phone that we are for 5-10 minutes. We go, we meditate, and then we come back like clean. It's just like wow. And the feeling is like it's the same feeling. The same feeling when you finish a workout. I go to the gym, we finish a workout. Oh my god, like I feel so good. And I feel so pumped. I'm doing my cardio. I feel nice with the qigong. You feel like light. It seems that you're just flying. It's
Totally.
great.
Yeah, floating. Like, so even today when I finished my standing meditation, so I've been doing it the last couple of days where I do it after my workout at the end. And at the end, I'm like, okay, got my energy back. Like, even after a harder workout session, I'm centered. Like, okay, let's go. Let's hit the next thing. Like, let's go to it. Like, I'm not drained. I'm like, hey, I'm ready to go again.
It is an easy benefit that many people don't take advantage of it.
Yeah, well, and I think we live in a culture these days where people look at it and it's like, okay, it's simple and it's also hard, because people are like, have to, they, again, going back to what I was saying before, they're not dealing with enough pain to actually feel the need to change, so they don't want to put in the effort. They're like, no, it's too hard, I don't feel like, I'd rather just take a pill, I'd rather just go to have a nap, I'd rather just drink this, smoke this, eat this, whatever, do something. And it's like, okay, well, you know what? How's that serving? It's like definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So until you're ready to make those changes to grow forward, you're still going to be dealing with pain, right? And I just go, I'm like, I hope, and my wish for everyone is to actually start seeing the need for having to build that strength within themselves, because when they do, then they'll have that unshakable confidence like Sifu Singh talks about, where it's just like nobody's going to mess with them anymore, because they are strong within them. There's a want to have someone there, but there's not a need.
One thing that you just mentioned about is life changing. We live in a very stressful environment, and everything have to happen so fast, especially in North America. We have to work and have to do this and have to do that. And something that I always tell my friends and my students, like, if you don't find time to take care of yourself now, later you're gonna have to find time, and then you're probably gonna have to spend a lot of money because, maybe it's 5 minutes a day, as you're saying. Like, okay, let me practice some qigong, maybe 5 10 minutes, 2 3 times per day. Is like 10 minutes, 5 minutes, or whatever time, just to at least center yourself, and then look for the for the benefits of those exercises. And then later you're going to be living miserable because you didn't have maybe the discipline of finding those 5 10 minutes that maybe you could cut your phone off, instead of being on your phone, Instagram or social media, or just doing any other thing.
Well,
You could be
that's the
taking
thing.
benefit.
Totally. Like these days, people just want to escape and just do Netflix and chill. And it's like, okay, what? How about take that 5 10 minutes like you talk about and actually work on you to build a better you? Not that anyone's bad, to build a
Mm-hmm.
stronger, more resilient you for the future. I still remember my mom said that her mom, so my grandmother said when she was like on her deathbed, she's like, this can't be it. I have so much more to do. There's so much that I didn't get to experience. And I'm like, wow, that's a real sad way to go, knowing that you could have done more. And that's not just her story. It's guaranteed there's so many people laying on their deathbed going, wow, I wish I would have done that. And I'm like, well, yeah, except now it's too late. And I looked at everybody else. I'm like, those are warning signs for all of us to pay attention to. Like you talked about at the beginning about learning from other people's mistakes. That's one of the things that I've been really good at over the years is I really watch people and watch the actions they take. And I'm like, yeah, that's not working for you. I'm not going to do that because I want to build something better for myself. And I'm like, it's worth putting in that effort. Yeah, some days it's not easy. It's very hard. But when I'm done, like when I go to jujitsu class, so when I see my instructor Christian here in Calgary, like I go to his class, and the first few months I went to him, I was just like, holy, this is so hard. Like literally I would start driving there and I'd want to turn around and go somewhere else. I'm like, and we had to have a couple of conversations, and he's like, Marlon, he's like, make it through. He's like, if you have to, take breaks every now and then, like you'll be okay. And if it wasn't for him doing that, I probably wouldn't have done it. So I'm really thankful for him for doing that, because it's kept me going, and it's help me see that doing those hard things are going to help grow me to go through the other challenges in life. Like just taking that time, it just like it makes me feel like I'm cutting loose like a superhero because of all the hard challenges I've gone through. Like it's energizing. It makes me feel alive.
Yeah, it's nice how when we find great instructors that can impact positively into our lives and brings us into a new version, or give us the strength to go through not only just the training, but to into our personal struggles as well.
Totally.
Martial arts and health are interconnected. What advice would you give to someone who just started out in martial arts who also wants to focus on holistic health?
I would say start small. That's the big thing, because there's a lot of people are like, I'm going to train like 5 6 days a week. I'm going to train like 2 or 3 hours a day just to get started. They're like, I'm so excited. I'm going to put everything into it. I, I find it doesn't work when people do that. Because they're not used to those patterns, and it's so different and like foreign from what they're used to, that people quickly fail. They don't last long because they recognize, I'm like, wow, this is really hard. And they quit and they don't continue with it. So even when going back to jujitsu, like I go twice a week for an hour each time. That's it. I don't go anymore. Now there's some other guys that go there 4 or 5 times a week, still do. And there's some that go 2 or 3 times a day. And I'm like, it's too much. I'm like, I can't. Like my body sap. Like, and Christian said to me, he's like, Marlon, don't. He's like, just come 2 times a week, do what you're doing, be really consistent on that. Because I have friends that go there more than that, and they go for lots, and then they quit for like a month, and then they come back, they go lots again, and they do the same insanity cycle. And I'm like, that's jujitsu. So that's if you're doing, so I'm doing sparring each class, like about 5 or 6 rolls of sparring, 6 minutes each. So that's a lot, including
Wow.
learning technique. Oh yeah, it's very intense, very tiring. So, and a lot of guys, when they do it 4 or 5 times a week, what ends up happening is they get injured. So they get hurt, so they can't make it sustainable. So if you're looking to build your health, The more times you're injured and hurt, the less time you're in training. The more you're dealing with health conditions where you're hurt and dealing with issues, that's going to affect you in your profession, your job, whatever that is. That's going to affect your relationships. As far as your ability to be present in the situation from what your partner's saying, rather than going to your reactive tendencies of what you think they said based on the past or what you think could happen based on your fears of the future. So when you're looking at overall health, it's like you have to start small and start building in there, building little practices in here. Only go like jujitsu as an example, 2 times a week, go for the hour, maintain that, maintain it for like a year. Then after it's been a year, then start incorporating a little bit more. Maybe do one more day. Maybe start doing some practice at home, like 10 minutes of martial arts practice in the day. Incorporate it into your daily activities. Like, so for me, so I go to martial arts class. People look at me like I'm crazy, but I go, how many hours do I see Sifu J? Let me see. One day, an hour, let's see, 3, 4. I'm just doing the math in my hand here. 7. I spent about 10, 12 hours with Sifu J. And then my jiu-jitsu instructor, I spent another 2 hours with him. So I spent about 14 hours a week training with my instructors, learning martial arts. And then on top of that, I spend probably another 5, 6 hours a week on my own. So I'm spending about 20 hours a week training. So somebody's like, all right, I'm going to do all that. And it's just like, yeah, that's been an evolving process. I've been doing martial arts for about a quarter of a century. It didn't start out that way. And what I would say is that when you do too much, that's when you're affecting your body's ability to recover. And that's things that's chronic amongst most martial artists is most of us are all overtrained. We do too much. We don't take enough time to rest and recover. And rest and recover isn't always sleeping. Rest and recover is also doing things like Tai Chi, doing things like yoga to relax our nervous system, to relax our tendons and tissues, like Sifu Singh talks about. It's about supplementation properly to support our body's systems to recover properly. So, but if you're doing the opposite and you're just going cold turkey, you're not taking care of the food you're eating, you're not taking your mental health awareness, and you're not getting enough rest, you're not drinking enough water, well, then your martial arts career will be shorter. Or if not shorter, not as optimized as you could be. And I look at myself as a martial artist, I'm like, I want to be able to perform at the highest level as long as I can. And in order to do that, I have to be mindful of, what I do with my health, who I associate with, because the other thing is who I associate with is going to affect me. It's going to affect my nervous system, my ability to relate to my partners, to be able to connect with them, to be able to bring the best version of me. If I have people in my life that not respecting my boundaries, not respecting me as a person, being passive aggressive, being mean, don't care, not considerate, that's going to affect my health. So when you ask that, I'm just like, there's so many moving parts to all that people don't take in consideration, that I've spent years thinking about that and tuning that in. So some of the decisions I make, I'm like, I'm not just making a reactive decision. This is a decision based on all of those factors that I listed to you.
Wow, that's amazing. Marlon, I want to thank you so much for for your participation. It was an honor to have you here. It was a
Yeah, you're
nice
welcome,
chat.
brother.
I just want to give you this few minutes an opportunity to um, tell a little bit about your work, how people find you, how can people get in contact with you, not just to practice, but also if they need to do any rehabilitation or get any consultation with you. Just feel free to give us any thought, even though I'm going to try to put everything on the description of this video, but feel free to also, for those who's listening us on
Yeah.
Spotify.
Excellent. Awesome. So I'm a freedom facilitator. So now what a freedom facilitator means is I help people to remove the blocks that are getting them in their own way of feeling a sense of freedom. So, and I do that using medical exercise training, life coaching, nutrition, holistic nutrition, and I also do that through elements of martial arts. So again, like I was saying, I generally don't work with a ton of martial artists. I generally working with people that are just really unwell and they don't feel free, they don't feel alive. And a lot of it is because of their patterns in their life that have created disservice. They did serve them at one point in their life. And now when they've came to see me, they're recognizing that those patterns or some of the patterns in their life aren't enough to be able to get them to that optimization that they like to be at. Like, so for me, I'm going there to look at the overall picture. So when I look at a client, it's not about just losing the weight. It's not about helping them get stronger. It's not about the shoulder pain or the hip pain or the back pain. that's just a symptom of more of what's going on. So then I start asking them a question. So I look at the whole picture. As I was saying, I look at, I'm like, okay, how are you managing the stresses in your life? What foods are you consuming that's getting your body to run on a day-to-day basis? How do we look at those foods, and how do we evolve that to something to get you where you like to be? Right. And then, physically, it's just like, what are your physical challenges? How do we able to mitigate those physical challenges better? So now I will say that I can't prevent anything. I don't cure. I don't heal. I believe the body has the ability to heal itself. I'm there to just be able to offer the tools to allow that process to happen. And from there, it's up to the individual whether they decide to actually follow through on the strategies I take. So I typically work with clients anywhere from 1 to 3 times a week. And within that time, I say to clients, I'm like, okay, even if you saw me 3 times a week, which is what I am aiming for every individual that I work with, that's still 3 hours out of 168 hours. And that's not to discount the work that I put in. That's to impress upon you that those 3 hours that they spend with me, they need to take those 3 hours and they have to apply it in their life as often as possible. If they walk in the door and expect me to do everything in that hour, they're going to lose. They have to be able to take that knowledge, and now it's like, okay, how do I use this to optimize my life in all aspects, not just physicality? Because most people come in that I've had in the past, they just expect it physical. I'm like, no, no, no. This is more than just physical. This is your connection with your partner. This is connection with your siblings. This is the connection with your business colleagues. This is the connection with the divine, whatever your religious creed that is, because I believe there's something bigger than ourselves here. If you don't believe in that, I think you're going to be missing something in your life. But the more you're able to connect to that divine, whatever that looks like, the more you're going to be able to connect to yourself, the more you'll be able to bring about the best version of you to the world. And that's from a place of service. The highest calling, I believe, is in service. And a lot of that is we have to learn to serve ourselves better. So I'm the one who has to teach them that. So for me, what I do is I'll put up videos on Instagram. So my Instagram tag is Warrior Marlon. Facebook, you can find me there, Marlon Robert Wilson. I'm on LinkedIn too, Marlon Robert Wilson again. I'm also on TikTok as Warrior Marlon. What am I forgetting? I have a YouTube page too, a YouTube channel. So also under Marlon Wilson, Quest for Freedom Talk. So because I've been doing podcasts myself. Yeah, and as far as clients, I'm looking for clients who are looking to commit to themselves, not clients that are interested. If you're just interested, I'm not the guy for you. If you're serious and you're committed to make changes and your desire is to feel a higher level of freedom and you're looking to build yourself, not just for you, for everyone around you, even the barista woman or man or whoever, then I'm the guy to be able to help you out with that. If you want to know more, come find me. I always say I'm not a hard guy to find. Right? Just, go through all those avenues. Some people have my number. Call me. You want to connect? Great. I love to be able to serve. I have all this knowledge that I have been putting together I'm 43 years old, and I've been putting this knowledge together for 28 years out of those 43. And having said that, all the 43 years is encompassed in that because all the lessons I learned from when I was born till now has led me to be who I am today, to be able to serve and share with others in the ways that I am.
Amazing, outstanding. Again, Marlon, thank you so much. I really appreciate for your time.
Yeah, you're welcome, brother.
Thank you guys for watching this podcast. Thank you for our audience on Spotify, on YouTube. Hope you guys have a wonderful time. Thank you very much, Marlon. I definitely want you back here, maybe of season 2 or in the later episode, so we can talk more and chat more about. But a little compliment for what we just spoke. Thank you very much, guys. You guys have a wonderful time. Bye bye.